Welcome to a new episode of the Startup Show. Today I'm here at the headquarters of Scandit and I'm very excited to introduce you to the CEO and co-founder Samuel. Welcome to the show.
Thank you, Cedric. Thanks for coming and hosting us today.
Welcome back to a new episode of the Startup Show. Today I'm here in Zurich, downtown of Zurich, meeting with the co-founder and CEO of Scandit. Samuel, welcome to the show. As usual on the Startup Show, maybe give us a little bit of an introduction. Actually, before we start, it's funny, I read one of the articles on TechCrunch that I found out about you, so it's really interesting. We'll get to that a little bit later, but give us a short introduction about yourself.
Sure, thanks, Cedric. So my name is Samuel Mueller. I'm the CEO and one of the co-founders at Scandit. We started the company about 7 years ago as a spin-off company of ETH Zurich, coming out of a research collaboration between ETH and MIT at the time. My co-founders and I at the time were looking at various ways of interacting with everyday products. And at the time it was already very clear that the smartphone was becoming the ubiquitous and prevalent means of potentially doing so, right? Everyone was carrying a smartphone in their pockets. I mean, that was in a sort of Nokia era at the time, so just when the iPhone was introduced. My co-founders in particular had been doing a lot of research into ubiquitous computing, RFID and barcoding technologies, and when we decided to spin out and found the company, we had over the years developed the first and most developed, most sophisticated technology to leverage the smartphone camera to facilitating an interaction with everyday products through the means of barcode.
So before we get more into what your startup does, let's talk a little bit about your background. You came from the ETH of Zurich.
Yeah.
Tell me, you were also at some kind of let's say between research, entrepreneurship. You were also, I saw on your CV a little bit in consulting or like corporate. Tell me, what made you decide to go into entrepreneurship?
I'm from a very entrepreneurial family, so most of the people in my family are in fact small and medium business entrepreneurs, have been active in various types of businesses. In fact, I've been the first person in my family to ever get the academic degree. So I was getting a little concerned about me going on to study sort of at university and then ETH and then even going on to do a doctorate. So it was kind of getting time for me to make the switch. And over the years, I had been thinking about various business ideas. And when I finished my PhD thesis at IBM Research and ETH Zurich, I was looking at different business ideas, one of which became what Scandit is today.
Okay, so let's not hold the audience back from understanding what Scandit is all about.
Scandit, from today's vantage point, is an enterprise mobility and data capture platform company. That means, in simple terms, we make it possible to capture data through the smart device camera, so the smartphone, the tablet camera, potentially also the camera attached to a wearable device, a drone or an autonomous robot, and capture data about products, in particular consumer products that are barcoded, but also other types of objects and products through the camera very, very effectively. And through our platform, we provide the components, the tools, and the cloud services to help businesses, retailers, logistics companies, manufacturers to rapidly build, deploy, and manage such mobile data capture applications for smartphones, tablets, wearables, etc. Through this approach, we make it possible for businesses such as leading retailers. So example customers today are in Switzerland, for example, are the Coop Group, or internationally Saks Fifth Avenue or Macy's, for example. So we help these retail businesses or these logistics companies move away from their traditional dependence on dedicated traditional hardware-based scanning equipment and instead use smartphones or iPod touches or Samsung devices, either consumer-grade smartphones or rugged smartphones, as a replacement or expansion technology to what they have been using to running their critical business processes throughout the entire supply chain.
Yes. So I guess it's a lot of inventory, people who have to go through a lot of warehouses, but maybe you can give one or two applications, like you mentioned Coop briefly, of people that maybe is not so common, like a barcode startup kind of. So maybe you can give us one or two examples of how one of your clients is using this product.
Taking a little bit of step back, the beauty of doing what we're doing on sort of commodity smartphone technology in pure software is that we can reach a wide variety of different user bases. So on the one hand, we can help a retailer do what you exactly suggested, namely replace the traditional scanning devices with a more modern, more easy-to-use scanner device. For example, for a use case such as inventory management, restocking, shipping, receiving, or in-store delivery, right? So these are sort of the traditional use cases that retailers or logistics companies have always used scanner devices for. Now, more recently, and through the advent and prevalence of smartphones and Scandit software-based data capture platform, it's becoming possible to use the same type of technology as a consumer engagement tool just as well. So think about your typical mobile shopping application. Think about an in-store self-scanning solution that is becoming very popular with major grocery retailers around the world. So here retailers like Coop Switzerland, Ahold in the Netherlands are really pioneers in this arena, and they are offering to their customers, just using an application that you download from the public app store. You scan all the items, keeps a running total in a sort of a virtual shopping cart, while you keep your items in your physical shopping cart. And at the end of the shopping trip, you just click a button on your mobile device in the most simplest fashion of checkout, and you're gone, right? You don't have to get in line and wait for the cashier to be ready to take your items out of the shopping cart again, right? So that's an example, a very concrete example of a use case that previously wasn't really possible, but that is becoming possible through the combination of smartphones in every consumer's pocket and Scandit software-based data capture platform and technologies.
Sure. So you recently raised some money. I read on TechCrunch. So maybe you can explain us a little bit how that went down. You know, a lot of times people in Switzerland are easy to raise the early stages, but when it gets to amount, I think if I remember correctly, $7.4 million, I remember. How did you get, you know, practical advice that you can give, like how you can raise such amount of money?
Fundraising is always challenging, of course. At this level of fundraising, of course, you need to have evolved the company sufficiently far and be able to show sufficient traction. Ideally, of course, you have strong IP as well, like we have, that makes it always easier for venture capitalists and sort of sophisticated investors to invest in a company like ours. Then, of course, it's key to be able to show that you have a well-rounded team, and not just the founding team typically at that stage, but you have built out a sort of an extended management team who each individually are experts at their respective domain and have sufficient experience in really scaling a company. Beyond that, you need to have real traction with real customers. When these things come together and you have a large market to address, you have the basic constituents to go and talk to more sophisticated venture capitalists. Now, that being said, of course, there are many other companies out there that sort of fight for attention there, and I'd say technology startup out of Switzerland may be slightly at a disadvantage here compared to a company attempting to do the same out of London, out of Silicon Valley, right? So here in our case, it's been beneficial that over the years we have built extensive networks of contacts through our strong presence both in Silicon Valley and across sort of major European technology hubs. So that helps to get either to lean on contacts with VCs that you have built before, or to get introductions to the right venture capitalist at that time. And then, of course, as always, it is important to run a process, so to not just talk to one and hope for the best, but you always have to have a plan B, you always have to have options. And of course, funnily enough, that makes your company typically more desirable if there is competition as well.
For sure, for sure. Towards the end of my show, I usually ask a little bit about entrepreneurship. So maybe you can tell us a little bit how it was, let's say, when you started off compared to today. How was this process of building a team from going from literally nothing to having a big team?
It's been a very thrilling experience, probably the hardest, the most exciting thing I've done so far in my life. I mean, building a company from the ground up is very rewarding, but it's also very, very tough. You live off very little for quite a while. We decided to bootstrap the business for about 3 years. So really get to an MVP, get to early revenue traction purely through organic means, through licensing activity in our case. So that, of course, also meant sort of on the founder and the early employee team, everyone had to take a hit. Everyone had to be very, very modest in how you would go through life. And really every single expense would be sort of scrutinized. Is that really necessary? Can I find a cheaper hotel? Can I sleep with a friend somewhere? Is there a shittier route to a certain place so you can save on airfare, for example, right? So these were clearly the early days. And while you're sort of working on that minimum viable product and early customer development and customer traction. And then, of course, at some point you get to that point where you start to see more momentum and start to scale and start to invest. And of course, to make money, you need to spend money as well. So at some point that flips and you have to get comfortable with spending more and doubling down on the things that work. Having the engineering and scientific heritage as a founding team that we do have, we've always been very systematic and try to really focus on building a sort of a strong hypothesis on what we think is the right approach, what we think works, and to then try it out and measure and take corrective action as needed. It's been a great experience, incredibly rewarding, and a big learning experience personally, and I think as a team. I mean, you learn to get to know each other, of course, at many, many levels that you otherwise wouldn't. So it's great, right? And I'm very excited about the years to come.
Sure. I have a lot of students who are watching, so I hope it will inspire them also to start something on their own. Samuel, thank you very much for your time coming onto the show. For all of you, thank you very much for watching. Thank you for your attention, and I'll see you soon with a new episode of the Startup Show. Have a great day, everybody.